And good afternoon, Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Welcome to another episode of Steelers Brunch with Tony. I am your host, Tony Defeo, and thank you for joining me on this mid-November Saturday. And before I get started with my weekly topics, I'd like to encourage you to please check out our Behind the Steel Curtain YouTube channel, where we bring you so many podcasts. There's this show, there's The Hangover, the day after every Steelers game, usually on Mondays. It's at 5 o'clock. There's the Scobro Show with Dave Schofield and his brother Rich. There's a Steelers Preview with Jeff Hartman, Brian Anthony Davis, and Dave Schofield. There is Know Your Enemy with Jeffrey Benedict and Michael Beck. And there's, of course, you can also find those on our audio platforms. We also bring you the Steelers Retro Show with yours truly and Brian Anthony Davis. The Live Mic with Michael Beck, Let's Ride, a very popular show by Jeff Hartman, and he also brings you the Mike Tomlin's the post press conference wrap up every week. So please check out our audio platforms. You can find those anywhere, and check out Behind the Steel Curtain, the website where we bring you news, commentary, film breakdown, everything you need for your Pittsburgh Steelers fix. And thanks to everybody for joining me in the live chat. There is Dave Shipley, Ryan O'Toole, Informed 80, Sport Highlights. Thank you all for joining me. Boo Bash, Just Me, Steelers Pittsburgh, Ezra. Awesome folks. So as always, I have a few topics I wanted to touch on today's show, starting with last Sunday's 24-19 victory over the Cowboys to improve the Steelers' record to 8-0 for the first time in franchise history. I'm sure nobody expected it to go down that way, a close and kind of ugly win. It was without a doubt their worst performance of the year. I think we can all agree on that. It wasn't a very good overall performance, but they made the plays to get the job done. A lot of people are wondering how could the Steelers have struggled against a team like the Cowboys that was under 500? It was down to its fourth string quarterback, Garrett Gilbert, basically a journeyman who hardly threw. I think he completed, or he attempted 6 passes coming into that game. So how could they have played so well? Well, I mean, how did the Steelers hang in there last year with Mason Rudolph going up against the 49ers early in the year? I mean, he didn't. He was totally inexperienced. It was his first career start, and by rights, they should have won that game against the 49ers, who ultimately went to the Super Bowl and were winning in the Super Bowl before losing to the Chiefs. So, how did the Steelers almost beat the Ravens last October at Heinz Field with Devlin Hodges ultimately replacing Rudolph in that game, and sending it into overtime? How did they hang in there against the Ravens, who ultimately went 14-2 and had the number 1 seed going into the playoffs? How did they hang in there with the Bills at the end of the year at Heinz Field with Duck Hodges going against Josh Allen and that great Bills defense? The Bills, they didn't win their division last year, but they were a pretty strong team and had a great defense. So, this is the NFL. These kind of things happen. And the important thing is that Pittsburgh found a way to win in Dallas. And the Cowboys, they might, I think they went into that game 2-5-1, or I'm sorry, 2-5. But they are still in contention, believe it or not, for the NFC East title. Everybody in that division pretty much is. It's a really subpar division. And the Cowboys were under 500, but they still had a lot to play for, and they were desperate. So I'm not, looking back on it, I'm not necessarily shocked that the Steelers had such a hard time for that reason, and for the fact that it was their third straight road game. And, that very rarely happens in the NFL. 4 straight home games like they had earlier before this road stretch, that hardly ever happens. And three straight road games are rare. And it's also rare for a team to win all 3 of those games. I think their winning percentage, I want to say, is like 32%, whatever. I forget what the actual number was, but it was pretty low. So for them to survive that, I think that said a lot. And I think the 2 key plays in that game were both made by Minkah Fitzpatrick, as far as I'm concerned. The first one came late in the first half after the Steelers. They were down 13-0 at that point. Ben had just suffered what everybody was hoping wasn't a very serious knee injury. And after the injury, he got sandwiched between two players, and there was like a very understandable concern over his well-being. But he got right back up and led the offense down for a touchdown to James Washington. It was 13-6. I think a crucial play came shortly after that when Cam Sutton stripped CeeDee Lamb of the football on the Cowboys' next possession, and Minka recovered it. He recovered it in midair, but it was a fumble recovery. And the Steelers, without Ben, who went into the locker room to get himself checked out, without Ben, with Mason Rudolph, they converted that into a field goal to make it 13-9 at the half. So the Cowboys were they were thoroughly dominating that game, you would say, over the first 25 minutes of the game, 28 minutes, and then to only go into the locker room up by 4, that had to be kind of demoralizing. And I think another crucial play by Fitzpatrick occurred in the fourth quarter when the Steelers were down 19-15, and it looked like the Cowboys were going in for more points, at least a field goal, maybe even a touchdown. Instead, they got nothing because Fitzpatrick picked off Gilbert in the end zone and to thwart that drive. And for a game that ultimately ended 24-19, that was huge. That's a 6-point swing right there. First with the fumble recovery in the first half, and then or at least a 6-point swing. It could have been a 10-point swing. We don't know. And the interception in the end zone late in the game. So those were the two key plays. And I think, a lot of the problems with that game, I think, maybe it wasn't the greatest offensive performance, but a lot of it came down to execution. I think, one thing people were overlooking early on Pittsburgh's first drive, Roethlisberger attempted a deep pass to Chase Claypool, and Claypool was interfered with on that play. I think that's pretty obvious. But he also got his hands on the ball after he broke free from the interference, and if he catches that there, it's a touchdown. And just like that, it's 7-0, and it sets a tone early in the game, changes the complexion of things early on. So you have to come if you're Chase Claypool. I know he's had a great first half, and he's a rookie sensation, strong candidate for Rookie of the Year. But he has to come down with that play there. And later in the first half, Ben tried to hit Deontay Johnson on a quick little pass, and for some reason he kind of like pulled the string on it. He tried to just be too cute with the pass, instead of just hitting him in stride. And according to Tony Romo and Jim Nantz, the CBS broadcast crew, that play could have gone for 20, 30, 40 yards. So who knows what happens after that if they convert on that play there. So I just think a lot of execution. I don't think the line had a great game. I think I read a stat last week that on Ben's deep balls this year, he's standing in a pocket, back in the pocket, 2.5 seconds or something like that before he throws. I'm not talking about overall. I'm just talking about just on deep passes. He's unleashing the ball 2 seconds after he takes the snap from center. So there might be a problem with the offensive line that we're not aware of as far as pass protection. And certainly it wasn't a great day for James Conner and the running game as a whole. So, I think it was just a breakdown in all kind of areas, play calling, Ben, the receivers, the line. As far as defense, a lot of concern about the run defense. The Cowboys had 144 yards on the ground. Wasn't pretty, but again, they made the plays and when they had to, and they only gave up one touchdown on a day, 4 field goals and 1 touchdown. Obviously, the real black mark for last Sunday's game was the special teams, which was just wow. 2 long returns, one on a kickoff and one on a punt. A missed extra point by Chris Boswell and a blocked extra point. And it seemed like they couldn't figure that part of their what the Cowboys were doing on that play. Some people were saying they were kind of skirting the rules, and some people are saying they weren't. But either way, they couldn't get the interior of that line secured on the candidate was having just a rough time, and hopefully that's something they get corrected in the future. But the special teams were a huge black mark for them last week. So it was just all around. It was just a pretty blah performance, but they somehow managed to win the game and escape with their undefeated record still, or their record still they're 8-0. They're 8-0 for the first time in franchise history. So I hate to say a win is a win is a win, because I remember Brian and I saying that every week back in 2017 when we used to do the podcast over the phone, and yeah, that was true. But you kind of see where they would have some problems in the playoffs if they met up with the wrong opponent, which turned out to be the Jaguars, who were just a horrible matchup for them that year. They proved it in the regular season, and they proved it again in the playoffs. So I hate to say a win is a win, but when you're 8-0, there's it's hard to really complain, because none of us have ever seen anything like this. I don't care if you're 20, 40, 50, or 90. You've never seen this as a Steeler fan. So this is pretty good. There are issues they have to clean up. There's no question about it. I think if I had to pick one thing that's troubling them right now, it's the injuries on defense. I think that can't be overlooked. I know a lot of people were rallying around Robert Spillane when Devin Bush went down in the Browns game, and he's done okay for himself, but that's just one injury you can compensate for when you have a defense as talented as Pittsburgh's. But when the injuries start piling up, when they start adding up, that's when you're in trouble. And right after Devin Bush went down, then Mike Hilton, he's missed 3 games in a row, and he's a vital part of their secondary and their defense and their run defense. Believe it or not, in run support, he's very pivotal in that regard. And then they've been without Tyson Alualu since the beginning of the Ravens game, and I don't think it's a coincidence that they've given up about 400 yards since then on the ground. They gave up 265 against the Ravens, and of course 144 against Dallas. So again, one injury we can make up for, but when they start piling up, that's when you're in trouble. I know the mantra, the standard is the standard and the next man up, but that's quite frankly more fantasy than reality. It's a nice rallying cry. It's a nice thing to motivate your team and the fans, and to keep your players focused if you're Mike Tomlin, and to let them know that you believe in them, even the backups. But like I've said before, first round picks are first round picks for a reason in most cases, and undrafted free agents are undrafted free agents for a reason in most cases. And in last Sunday's game, I mean, you had obviously Isaiah Buggs in there, and Mondo was in there a lot, and Carlos Davis, the 7th round pick out of Nebraska, he got his most extensive action, maybe his first action of the season. I kept, for a second there, I thought it was Ramon Foster when I saw number 73 in there. I was getting kind of excited because he's one of my favorite players of all time. But when you're down that, when you have to reach down that far on the depth chart to compensate for a loss, and let's not forget, Alualu was taking Hargrave's place, who left as a free agent. So when you're reaching down that far on a depth chart, you're usually going to be in trouble. So I think it's foolish to not consider the impact of these injuries for the defense. But Alualu's, from what I understand, is going to be playing against the Bengals. At least he's expected to. I'm not sure about Mike Hilton yet, but I'm confident in Cam Sutton's abilities. And now you're going to have, I'm assuming, Avery Williamson will be he'll factor more into the defense now as far as the rotation inside linebacker, and he's a solid veteran. Maybe who knows? Maybe even upgrade over Spillane. We don't know yet, but regardless, just having him in there and having Alualu back, and eventually getting Mike Hilton back, that's going to go a long way in shoring things up for this defense. I think that's encouraging moving forward. They've played some ugly ball lately, especially the last. I'd say how good did they look in those in the 12 quarters against the Titans, Ravens, and Cowboys? How good did they look? I'd say maybe they were, if on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe a 6 overall. They look really dominant in the first half against the Titans, and they've kind of been struggling ever since. They've kind of been just treading water over the last 10 quarters of action for them, but yet they've managed to pull games out. And to me, that speaks volumes to their character, to their overall talent, to obviously to the importance of having a future Hall of Fame quarterback like Ben Roethlisberger back this year after he missed most of all last year. So, I think there's hope for the future with them. They're 8-0, and you would think naturally there's reason to be optimistic. They're the only undefeated team in the NFL, but a lot of people are kind of down on them right now because of the way they've been playing lately. But again, they're going to get home against the Bengals. That should help. I think that's going to help them. And as far as fixing what ails them on offense, that's certainly going to help. So, am I concerned? A little bit, but I think a huge part of my concern has to do with injuries on defense. And again, once they get those guys back, Alualu and Hilton, and they start throwing Williamson in there on defense, I think that defense will start performing a lot better. So I'm looking forward to see what they do over the second half of the year on both offense and defense. And that's gonna do it for the first half of this episode of Steelers Brunch with Tony. If you're watching on YouTube, please stick around. I'm not going anywhere. And if you're listening on our audio platform, please download part 2 of this episode of Steelers Brunch with Tony. And welcome back to this episode of Steelers Brunch with Tony, to part 2. Thank you for joining me. If you're listening on audio, and if you're watching on YouTube, thank you. And I'm going to welcome some more folks into the live chat. I saw Kathy Ford in there earlier, Raheem Hunt, Daredevil, Felicia Bellard. Let's see who else. Snowman, the legendary Snowman. Awesome. Thank you guys for joining me. And Steelers Territory, Louisiana Purchase. I love that. I love that name. It's a mouthful, but I love it. So I finished up the first half of the show talking about the Steelers' struggles and how some people were down on them because of their shaky play the last few weeks, even though they're still undefeated. And that brings me to power rankings. And people are they usually I think they put too much stock in that. As far as I'm concerned, power rankings are a good barometer to see where the team is. If you have a team that's constantly ranked in the bottom half of the league in power rankings, that's a pretty good indication that team's awful. If it's in the top 4, 5, 6, 7, that tells me that the team is a contender, and it's just a matter of opinion whether it's first, second, wherever you want to put it. I know a lot of people were kind of upset that they've been behind the Chiefs in a lot of the power rankings, at least they were after last week. And even in one of them, the Pro Football Focus, they were behind the Ravens and the Saints, fourth. They're fourth in that power ranking. But I think you have to understand where people are coming from with that kind of stuff. Patrick Mahomes, he's the face of the league. The Chiefs are the defending Super Bowl champions, and they've only lost one game this year. Yeah, the Steelers haven't lost any, but the Chiefs have only lost once, and you're gonna have a bad week every now and then. But a lot of people are convinced that Pittsburgh can't beat the Chiefs. Maybe they can't. I don't know. But the great thing is they might not have to play them. And I don't care if they play them or not in the playoffs. I mean, as I wrote about the other day, I don't care if, and hello to Isaac, who just joined us in the live chat. I don't care if the Chiefs get knocked out in the first round and Pittsburgh takes on the 7th seed in the first in the divisional round, then the 6th seed in the AFC in the AFC Championship game, and then they take on the winner of the NFC East in the Super Bowl. Somehow that team, whoever that is, makes it to the Super Bowl. To me, there are no style points when it comes to winning a championship, because they knocked off the. People talk about the 08 Steelers and how tough their regular season schedule was, and it was historically difficult that year. And they won 12 games. But what people fail to mention is how easy their I don't want to say easy, but how like the winning percentage of their playoff opponents that year was like barely over 500. The Chargers, they played them in a divisional round. They were 8-8. The Ravens were 10-6. I want to say they were the last seed that's who they played in the championship game. And then the Cardinals in the Super Bowl were 9-7 in the regular season. So, nobody ever talks about that. They just talk about how historically difficult the regular season schedule was, and not the playoff schedule. Because why don't people talk about that? Because nobody cares about that, really. And nobody cares that they missed the Patriots that year. Nobody cares that Tom Brady didn't play that year other than part of the first game before suffering an ACL tear, because people don't remember that kind of stuff. People don't really focus on those kind of things. They don't talk about the fact that the Steelers they beat the Rams in Super Bowl 14 back in 1979, and the Rams were 9-7 that year. And everybody thought, up until the Rams knocked off the Cowboys in the divisional round, everybody thought it was going to be a rematch of Super Bowl 13, and it wasn't. The Steelers Super Bowl victory still counted. They're still considered by many to be the greatest dynasty of all time in the NFL. So, I think power rankings are, again, they're there for amusement and a great thing for fans to debate. But I don't get worked up by it. Like, I don't get worked up by where the Steelers are ranked in that. I'm more concerned about actual tiebreakers and whether or not they can make the playoffs at the end of the year and what they have to do that. That's what concerns me more. To me, power rankings, it's sort of like having a franchise quarterback, right? If your team has one, I don't care where you want to rank them. Like Ben Roethlisberger gets, and I think rightfully we can be upset or at least, take a exception to the fact that throughout his career, he sort of gets undersold as a franchise quarterback. He's always, ranked lower than he should be in whatever category you want to name, all-time great, current, whatever. But the Steelers know he's a franchise quarterback. He's a franchise quarterback. I know he's a franchise quarterback. And as long as they have him, as cliched as it always sounds to say, as long as they have him, then they can do some special things. And I think you're seeing that this year. The offense isn't quite, the offense is putting up great numbers, at least as far as the scoreboard is concerned. Last week was their low mark at 24 points. So I think that says something to what he means, as his presence alone, what it means for this team in general. The defense has slipped a little bit from last year, overall anyway, at least through the first 8 games. But they're 8-0 because they have the most important position in the NFL, maybe in all professional sports. They have that position covered, and they have it covered with a future Hall of Famer who is healthy again. So again, power rankings are nice and they're fun to debate, but they really don't mean anything. I mean, they can rank the Steelers 15th for all I care, but if they keep winning games and have the best record in the AFC come playoff time, then as far as I'm concerned, they're going to have the best chance of making it to the Super Bowl of anybody else in the AFC, because they're going to be playing at home. And unless the NFL changes, goes with its contingency plan of that it voted on, the owners voted last week to add an 8th playoff team to each conference in the event that there is a shortened regular season due to COVID. unless the NFL does that, the Steelers are only going to have to play two games at home to get to the Super Bowl. So they can rank Pittsburgh anywhere they want, as far as I'm concerned. I don't care where ESPN ranks them, Yahoo, PFF, SB Nation. I really don't care. That doesn't bother me. If they were a college team and they had to depend on rankings to make it to the college football playoffs, yeah, that'd be a big deal. But power rankings, again, it's just another thing a fun thing to debate, and it doesn't really matter. So I believe that the Steelers are a true contender. I think, like a lot of teams, they have their flaws, but they're legit. I think they've proven it. I think they proved it on that road trip. People were thinking, if they can get 1 or 2 wins in those games, I'll be happy. Well, they got 3 wins. So to me, they're legit. It's the whole style points don't matter thing. Maybe that's not entirely true, but I think it does mean something when you can look at your record and see that through 8 weeks, regardless of the flaws, regardless of the problems you have to work through, regardless of the injuries, to me that says a lot. If you can look at the scoreboard and say, hey, the standings, I should say, and say, hey, look, we're 8-0. I think that speaks volumes. So that's one more thing I wanted to cover, and that's Sunday's game against the Bengals. And Bengals, despite their record, I think they're 2-5-1 now. They're a pretty competitive team. I mean, they gave the Colts all they can handle. They gave the Browns all they can handle twice. They tied the Eagles, which I guess it's not that impressive, but still they tied the Eagles, and they beat up on the Titans in their last game. Joe Burrow looks like the real deal. The rookie quarterback, number 1 overall pick. He looks like a very good young quarterback. He looks like he could really take the Bengals places eventually. He's averaging 284 yards a game, passing. He's 11 touchdowns, 5 picks. And he looks like a good young leader for them. Something they can really truly build around after struggling to be relevant for so many years. But and they do have some weapons. Obviously AJ Green, the veteran receiver, Tyler Boyd is really coming into his own. T. Higgins, the rookie. So they have some quality receivers. They have a good young quarterback. They won't have Joe Mixon. He's going to be out for tomorrow's game, and he was having a good year prior to his injury. So that's a plus for Pittsburgh. But still, though, I think the Bengals are going to be a handful. But where I think the Steelers have a huge advantage is where they usually have a huge advantage over every opponent, and that's getting after the quarterback. I think Burrow has been sacked 28 times through 8 games, and you know how good the Steelers are at getting after the quarterback. So I think that's one area where they can really make life miserable for him and really welcome him to the NFL and show him what life in the NFL is all about, and how it's not always sunshine and roses when you're standing back there facing a defense that's absolutely relentless at rushing the passer. So I think the front 7 with Alualu back in there, and obviously Tuitt and Hayward and Watt and Dupree and Vince Williams. I think they're gonna as they say, they're gonna eat. They're gonna get their share of sacks and quarterback hits, and I think that's going to prove to be the difference. I think that's going to cause Burrow to make some rookie mistakes and provide the offense, the Steelers offense, with some premium scoring opportunities. And I think it might be competitive early on, but I honestly feel like the Steelers are going to win this game fairly handily. And I'm not just saying that either. I think they're gonna kind of do what they did to the Browns, except it won't be as much of a blowout. It'll be like maybe 34-20, 31-17, 31-13, that kind of game. I think it's going to be a fairly comfortable win for them. And I think it's incumbent upon them is 8-0 is great and everything. And I just read before I came on the air that Roethlisberger's been cleared from his clear to play. He was in COVID protocol last week because Vance McDonald tested positive, and a few players had to quarantine themselves and be separate from the team all week. But I think judging by how beat up he was and how much he kind of struggled last week, and I think it was good that he maybe could get away for a week and not be at the facility. So I think Ben's going to have a really good game tomorrow, and I think it's incumbent upon him to do so, because I think it's important that they win this game, and I think it's vital that they beat the Jaguars, because if they can if they hold serve over these next 2 weeks, and even if the Ravens win these next 2 games, and they're playing the Patriots tomorrow night, and then they play the Titans, so it's not going to. I mean, the Patriots game, I expect them to win, but the Titans game, they might lose that game. So, but even if they hold serve themselves and they come into Heinz Field on Thanksgiving night with it'd be 8-2. If Pittsburgh wins that game, you're talking about a 3-game lead with 5 to go, and essentially a 4-game lead, because they would have the tiebreaker thanks to head to head. So I think it's vital that Pittsburgh beats the Bengals and takes care of the Jaguars next week, and remains undefeated. I don't think we're in. If you're a Steeler fan, if you're the Steelers themselves, you're Mike Tomlin, I don't think you're in a position right now to just say, "Oh well, we deserve a mulligan. We deserve a bad performance," because I think you still have to keep winning, because I think it's vital to get that number 1 seed and home field advantage, and you only have to play 2 games in the playoffs. So I just think they have to play a really great game tomorrow and take care of business. So that's all I have for today. And now I will spend 5-10 minutes taking some questions. So let's see what we have, live chat. Well, here's one from Ezra. A comment. Ray, meaning Ray McLeod, the return specialist / receiver, needs to get more touches than Deontay. Yeah, I just said that. Ooh, that's a hot take. Hot take, Ezra. Yeah, this hasn't been Johnson's been getting his touches, and he's certainly been productive this year, but this hasn't been a great year, second year for him. He does look kind of frustrated out there. But I'm not willing to give up on Johnson yet. I think he still has some great football in front of him this year. I just think he has to stay healthy and get on the same page with Ben, because I think that's been a problem with the two of them is sort of being in sync. So I'm not ready to do that, but I do think McLeod deserves some more touches. I think they can find a way to work him into the offense like they did earlier in the year. So let's see. We have a $5 super chat from Snowman. And oh wow, it's a compliment. Wow, I can't believe I missed this. Being an egomaniac. It says your scruff, I guess that's what he meant. Your scruff is looking good with a little gray in there, looking like the Professor Tony. Well, that's nice of you. It's better than always hearing, "Hey, Baldy McBall." That's what I get a lot every time I engage somebody in a vicious verbal battle on the internet. The first thing that happens is they comment on my baldness, which I didn't realize how bald I was, but apparently, according to the internet, I'm like Kojak or whatever more modern reference you want to talk about. Here's one from Rod L. You think we should come out passing against the Bengals? Well, I mean, I think it's important I think they can, judging by the Bengals' lack of a pass rush, they only have 11 sacks on the year, as Pittsburgh's on pace to get 60 plus, and they only have 11. So I think they can do either or. I think it's important to get James Conner going there. So do I think they should come out passing? Not necessarily. I think they need to come out effective, which is something that they rarely do on their initial drives in games this year. So I think it's important that they come out, they establish something, whether it's a sound passing attack or a sound rushing attack. But I think it's important that I think they can get either I think they can be effective in either of those areas because the Bengals are sort of near the bottom in most key defensive categories. Again, like I said, they don't get after the quarterback that well. Carl Lawson has 3.5 sacks for them, and after that, they really don't have another premium pass rusher. They don't take the football away at a great rate. I think they're averaging like maybe 1.5, which I mean I guess is not horrible, but it's not great either. So I think they can do whatever they want, provided that they execute. Here's one from Ryan O'Toole. Which receiver do you think will have a big game this week? Isn't Claypool due again? Claypool, I should say. Yeah, I guess it's although he did catch the winning touchdown against the Ravens late in that game. I mean, I could see any of them having a big game. Again, that's what I like about this receiving core. You saw last week. James Washington scored the first touchdown in the game. You saw how vital Juju Smith-Schuster has been over these last 2 games. And by the way, I think all those the offseason workouts that Juju put in, where he was it seemed like he was online posing every day, and people were like, "Oh, come on, what are you, a bodybuilder or a receiver?" Well, I think it's starting to pay off. I think you saw that touchdown he had last week where he kind of carried a couple of Cowboys into the end zone, and he's been doing that a lot this year. Taking on defenders and gaining extra yards after the catch, and it just through his physicality, not even through making people miss, just through driving through defenders and them riding him 4 or 5 yards. I think it's his dedication. As much as we'd like to, as much as fans like to get on Juju for his social media presence, I think there's no denying he really put into work this offseason. And I think it's starting to pay off, and I think it's going to continue to pay off down the stretch over the second half of the year. Here's a $5 super chat from Felicia Ballard, and thank you, thank everybody for anytime anybody donates. It's always appreciated. And it says, Ben, Vince Williams, Gerald Hawkins, and Jalen Samuels all have been cleared for Sunday. To answer your question, we can all breathe. That's exactly right. Yeah, I was so focused on Ben, I forgot about the other guys. Vince Williams obviously is a very vital member of their defense. So yeah, it was a scare. I guess the only one that hasn't been cleared, as far as according to Felicia, is Vance McDonald, and he probably won't be cleared. I would suspect. I think they're going to err on the side of caution with him. I'm assuming maybe Zach Gentry will get a helmet, but they certainly have enough passing weapons. Eric Ebron, who scored the game winner last week, leaping over the defender into the end zone. I think he's really starting to come around. He's really starting to. You can tell Ben is really starting to look to him more and more, and he's becoming his favorite tight end target. So, it'll be interesting to see how they respond without McDonald, but I'm not too concerned about that. I think it's best for them moving forward to, when it comes to McDonald, to err on the side of caution. Because what does Mike Tomlin always say when it comes to the health of his players, and not just McDonald that he has to worry about, the rest of his players. It's if I wouldn't let my son play, I'm not going to let this guy play. And in this case, it'd be McDonald. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was deactivated tomorrow. What else we have here? Here's one from Ezra. A comment. I hope we pay Bud. Our receiving room is deep. Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest, I don't. As I've been saying, I don't think they're going to be able to afford either one of those guys, because you see what they're paying Bud Dupree this year, $16 million roughly. So you figure he's going to want at least that much in a new contract. And as Dave Shipley said, I think it was Dave in the comment section, they have to pay T.J. Watt, and T.J. Watt's going to command $20-some million a year, you would think. I mean, he's going to be getting some big money, franchise quarterback type money, at least franchise quarterback money from like 5-10 years ago. He's going to be making $20-some million, you would think. So yeah, I don't see either guy coming back. I would love if they were able to make it happen. I mean, hey, it's not my money, It's not my salary cap. So if they can find a way to make it happen, great. But I just don't see how just the numbers. I don't see how they make that work. So, but you never know. Here's one from. Oh, here's a comment from Felicia, kind of clearing up. Vance tested positive on Tuesday, so he's still on the COVID list. Yeah, I think silly me. I think you have to sit out 2 weeks when you're positive. So yeah, I didn't even think of that, because I think that was Cam Newton when he went on the when he tested positive, he missed 2 games. So yeah, it wasn't even. So thank you for clearing that up, Felicia. Let's see. Here's one from Rod L. A comment. Tomlin deserves a Shula type season, and wouldn't that be spectacular, right? I mean, it would be spectacular anyway, if they go 19-0, but that certainly would cement Tomlin's legacy. It would. I know he has his detractors. I think all coaches do, no matter how successful they are. But I think you definitely see that with Tomlin. I mean, a lot of people still don't want to give him credit for Super Bowl 43. They still want to give Bill Cowher credit for that victory. So, yeah, he I think regardless of what happens this year, and I shouldn't say regardless, because all it could take is a bad playoff loss for people's opinions to change on a dime. But I think a lot of people, whether they want to admit it or not, I think they've gained a lot of respect for Tomlin's abilities over the last 2 years. The job that he did last year without Ben, keeping that team together, him and Kevin Colbert being aggressive and going after Minka Fitzpatrick early in the year and shoring up that defense. And people are like, I can't believe you're doing that. You can get a top 5 pick, this year. But they actually almost made the playoffs after doing that. So I think he deserves kudos for that. I think he deserves a lot of credit for keeping the team together this year, because this wasn't. Ben returned, and that was going to be a big boost for them. But it was such an unusual offseason without OTAs, without minicamp, without training camp was at Heinz Field instead of Latrobe. So he had a lot of things, a lot of obstacles this year. And what another one of his, in addition to this next man up, and the standard is the standard. Another thing he likes to say is don't blink. And as I've said multiple times, the teams that were going to be successful in 2020 with the everything that's going on with COVID and players having to be more disciplined than normal, and not just on the field, but away from the facility, it's going to be the teams that didn't blink. And that's one of Mike Tomlin's favorite sayings: "Don't blink, don't you dare blink." If you ever go back and watch his mic'd up segment on YouTube from the Broncos game back in 2015, he was in Mike Mitchell's face. Don't you dare blink. They were down by like 17 points at one point. And he was like, yes, sir. I'm not even sure if he knew what that meant at that point, Mike Mitchell. But it certainly became a favorite Tomlinism after that. So I think he deserves a lot of credit for the job he did last year and so far this year. And here's another $5 super chat from Just Me. Tony, love the show and chat. And thank you for the $5, Just Me, by the way. Tony, love the show and the chat. Definitely feels like brunch with friends. Well, that makes me feel so good, because I don't know how to cook. I'm a horrible cook. But if I can make you feel like you're at brunch, to me, that's a great compliment. So thank you, Just Me. And I'm up against it when it comes to time. So I think on that note, I will bid you all adieu. And it was a fun show. I had a great time. I hope you guys had a great time too. And again, please check out our YouTube channel, check out our audio podcast, and check out Behind the Steel Curtain. And until Monday with Brian Anthony Davis on The Hangover, you guys have a great weekend, and go Steelers.